Hello everyone, it's technology strategist and futurist Crystal Washington, and it was wonderful meeting you at the Leading Authorities Inspire Conference. Now, while we were there, you had a chance to submit your questions for all the speakers, but we didn't have enough time to answer all of the questions while we were still on stage. So I just received the questions from Leading Authorities. I haven't had a chance to review them yet, so you are going to get my spontaneous responses. Are you ready? All right. So first question, there are so many social platforms to keep up with. Any advice on which we should be using both personally and for our business? Very good question. Oftentimes people ask me what's the best social network, and I tell them that social media is a lot like kitchen appliances. You have to ask yourself, what is your goal? If you're trying to make a smoothie, don't use the oven. So with that having been said, for business, the only social network that I will say everyone should use across the board is LinkedIn, because it is the only totally dedicated social network to business itself. So you want to be on there. You want to have your keywords and things in your profile. You want to make sure that it's sharp. If you have a business page, you want to make sure that your keywords or words you want to be found for are located in that as well. You want to have all your information there and great graphics, okay? Now, let's see. Personally, that kind of depends on what you're trying to do and who you're trying to connect with. If you're trying to, for instance, connect with family across different generations, Facebook's probably the one they're going to be on. If you're trying to connect with some of the younger members of your family, you might want to consider Instagram or Snapchat. So again, it just depends on where the people that you want to connect with. Second question, what's the best social media platform to use for business for the purpose of getting new clients and brand awareness? So that's almost entirely LinkedIn again, because again, remember that's the professional social network. We talk about getting business. I'm assuming we might be, well, no, because some of you might be independent planners. Some of you might be with larger organizations as well. So again, I think LinkedIn's probably the safe bet for most. If you're more in a B2C category for your organization, then you use the social network where most of your clients are located. So if most of your clients are on Facebook, well, then using Facebook and possibly Facebook ads, that might be your best option. If you're doing a lot in retail for millennials, Instagram's going to make sense. So again, it really depends on where your target market is located. Go where they are. Next one, my PR team doesn't want me to be the spokesperson for our team. How can I still use social media without violating my company's preferences for corporate communications? That's a great question. Make sure you check out your organization's social media policy. That's number one. You need to see what is and is not allowed, because what you don't want to do is get on there and give out important trade information or things you're not supposed to. What you can do, if it is allowed, is build a very positive brand as an industry expert, and if it's allowed, put information about your company as well. But make sure that you put the information on there that you're not representing the company in any ways, your views are not representative of the company. And then you can actually have a presence that way, whether we're talking about Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or any place else. But again, make sure that you read that social media policy, because all companies do not work the same. So you have to see what works for your organization. Okay, next question. Media relations are changing with social media too. How do you get noticed by journalists on social media? Ooh, that's a good one. My number one answer? Twitter. News breaks first on Twitter. And so all the reporters, newscasters, all these different people are looking for news on Twitter. And so most of the interviews that I have done with very large publications across the world came because I was noticed on Twitter. So start following or connecting with the journalists that write on the particular topics that you're interested in being featured on. So go on Twitter, start to look and see where the people are that you want to connect with, and see what kind of things that they're posting and looking for. You might be surprised. Next up, oh, and throwing that out there, make sure you follow them, because if you follow them, they're more likely to follow you back. And if they follow you back, they're more likely to see what you post and consider you as an expert for future stories. All right, next up, how often should you promote your business on social media without becoming obnoxious? That's a good question, because social media is social. No one wants to be friends with a billboard. So it depends on the network. And it also depends on what you have on the network. So for instance, if we're talking about a Facebook business page, well, you can actually post something really on average every 2 days is kind of the magic number. But depending on your audience, you might be able to post more often. And I like to use the 80-20 rule. And what I mean by that is Don't just post about your business all the time and take this next step or click here, but provide content that your target market would be interested in that's still in alignment with what it is you have to offer. So for instance, if you are, let's say, a realtor, okay, so maybe you work with an association of realtors or something, let's say residential realtors. I would tell that residential realtor, if they have a Facebook business page, really only 20% of the time should they be posting about houses or anything like that, or open houses. The other 80% of the time, they might be giving tips for getting your credit in order so that you can buy a house, laws affecting homes, how to choose the best home in your area, or just cool things that someone on the receiving end would want to receive, okay? All right, last question. This went by so fast. How do you see the shifts in learning impacting the ways of delivering education at meetings? Ooh, this is a good one. So, when we talk about the shifts in learning, we have to understand that, especially with younger generations, but it's happening to all of us, we're becoming more and more dependent on technology to help us learn. So some of us have learned languages using apps that are out there. Kids are using AR or GPS-enabled augmented reality apps to learn about geology, mathematics. We can go to museums across the world and hold up our phones and see 200-year-old overlays of what we're looking at. Museums, you can point your phone at exhibits and get more of a deep dive of information. So the point is that we're becoming more and more connected to our phones to educate us. And so in the future, when you think about your meetings, the message that I have is you have to get to the point where you're addressing your audience's biological as well as their mobile brains. So do you have content that they can use their phone for? Because they're going to have their phones. They're going to be using all these different devices. I'm shooting this on a phone right now and I still have another phone in my hand. Okay, so yeah, you all are probably thinking, why do you have two phones? I don't need your judgment. This is just my world, right? So how can you leverage this? And so, you can use things like Goose Chase, which is a really fun scavenger hunt type app where you can really load it based off of your event so that people are getting the information that you want them to get, but it's in a fun and interactive way. And you can even build these where it's teamwork. Again, using things like augmented reality so that as they're going into spaces, it's more of a deep dive. Possibly virtual reality, even to demonstrate learning concepts. We see this a lot in the medical field. We also see this in the military. There's no reason that we can't transport some of our members into completely different worlds or alternate realities where they're learning about something in 3D while they're inside of it. So we just have to be more creative. And there's not a lot of pressure to do these things, but just understanding that if people are going to be constantly fidgeting with their phones, how can you ensure that as they're fidgeting with their phone, they're learning at your meeting? Well, it's been wonderful. I look forward to chatting with you all in the future. Hopefully that answered all of your questions.